Thank you for tuning in, everyone. It's our first episode live broadcast of Heartbeats, and we have here with us a very special guests, Jonathan and his wife, Andi Goldman. They're not only sound experts, they're best-selling authors, but they're Grammy-nominated producers, and we're really, really excited to have them both here in our studio, and they're live in their home in Colorado. So thanks for joining us, both of you. Please, feel free to answer any of the questions that have come through. I'm going to kind of feed the questions to you, and we have quite a few viewers here now, so we're going to start feeding you guys the questions.
Oh. First, Michael, we want to say hi. Second of all, I want to say I'm Jonathan. This is Andi.
And Michael, thank you so much. We're looking very forward to sharing our sound information.
And hello to everyone. Hi.
Is there a level or depth of how much you're humming in your throat, like a Tibetan monk, or a matter of a difference, how much you hum?
That's three different questions, actually. So
well, okay.
We'll take it the first level, which is, I guess we could say, Andi and I always like to say that with regard to humming, being comfortable is mandatory.
Absolutely. And being in your comfort zone while you're humming, honestly, Michael, any amount of time that you can spend humming is going to be beneficial.
And second, the question of, indeed, are you doing a deep voice? No, we're not. Well, the reason we chose the hum as a sound is because it's a sound that everybody can make. And we want people to make it comfortably. So, and third of all, in terms of what note, what pitch, whatever you're doing, whatever is comfortable for you, like to suggest that really, as you begin to work with the hum, you can try different pitches for yourself, different variants, so you can hum HMMMM or HNNN. One would sound like and the other one's going to go a little more nasal over here. But basically, the thing that we really, really suggest doing is one single pitch. That's the one thing that we really highly suggest, is humming on a pitch as opposed to humming Zippity Doodah or some other song. It's great, but the longer a particular frequency is resonating with you, the more powerful its effect.
Well, those are really great answers. Thank you for that. We have another question came in from Adrienne Rose, and she says, I love humming, but it makes me very tired. Is there something I can pair with humming to raise my energy and be relaxed throughout my day?
Well, first, I would probably ask how long you are humming, because that can make a bit of a difference, because you do almost go into an altered state the longer that you do hum. And this is interesting, though, Adrienne, because humming releases melatonin, which does help us actually to go to sleep at night. And we will hum sometimes when we are having trouble falling asleep. But I think that it depends on the length of time. And during the day, what Jonathan and I recommend is a humming practice for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then give yourself a little bit of downtime, a little silence, and then move on with your day.
And I would also like to suggest that indeed what Andi said is, totally extraordinary. But the question also reminded me of the work of a French otolaryngologist by the name of Alfred Tomatis, a medical doctor, who wrote, among other things, a book called The Conscious Ear. he was considered actually the Einstein of the ear, quite a remarkable man who did a whole lot of work with the power of listening and how listening to different sounds can charge the brain. And one of the things he did was he taught a modality of humming that would be, if you like, he liked to parallel it to having a cup of coffee. And it's literally no different, except I think the intention of the person making the sound. In other words, if you're making a sound to chill out and really get yourself relaxed, which it's going to do by its very nature, then that's one thing. If you're making the sound with the intention that, yes, initially, because you're going to be, we always ask that you breathe deeply. And when you make these sounds, that you sit up straight and that you do that, you may feel a little bit lightheaded and blissed out when you get done. But then if you program yourself, say, well, this is a mini vacation for me to be then charged and energized, that's what's going to happen.
Well, and also I just want to pop in with a beautiful formula that Jonathan created, oh my goodness, back in the 80s. And that is frequency plus intent equals healing. So the intention that we put onto our humming, onto any sounds that we make, is really a big factor in the outcome. So, if you're humming and you're getting drowsy or whatever, maybe you want to set the intention of fueling your body with energy and then begin to hum as a suggestion.
Energizing your nervous system. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's one of the things in our interview, I don't know how much I talked about the importance of intentionality, but it can never be under stressed, Michael. It's so very, very important. The idea of frequency plus intent. So the sound, the frequency, the sound, that's one thing. But the intention, the belief, the energy that we encode upon the sound, they work together like sacred peanut butter and jelly. And they create this extraordinary yum phenomena that manifests what you want. And this is one of the things, particularly, I know in our book here, I'll just hum it up. I'll hold it up for a second. The humming effect. I'm not sure which chapter it is. It's going to be, I'm just looking myself to see. But, oh, yeah, okay. 4th chapter, it's called Our Thoughts Matter. And because it's so very, very important what we project upon any sound, including the words that we're even speaking now to each other.
They make a big difference. And so I hope, at any rate, I hope that this has helped and has given our listener a little bit more information that could enhance her humming.
I mean,
Thank you so much.
Sorry, what a blessing, though, to be able to chill from a sound. I mean, how many people would be like, wanting to line up at the pharmaceutical store to, get a hum if, they all chilled out. So, you're having a wonderful reaction. And if you want to, program yourself to be awake, you can do it.
We have a question coming in from SoCal Hula Girl, and she says, should I hum the same thing every day for 5 minutes? My mind is always racing, so I have a hard time slowing my brain down. Is 5 minutes long enough, as long as I do it every day?
Well, absolutely. Doing a humming practice every day, it's going to get more powerful. The more you practice, the more you do it, the more effect it is going to have. And certainly, when you are humming, I think going back to that intention, that frequency plus intent equals healing, that I think is a big piece, even in this question that has been asked.
This is reminding me, one question spurs a whole lot of things. And I, our purpose is to empower people with the ability of using sound for healing and self-transformation. And by doing that, we don't want to give them a cookbook formula of make this sound for this particular purpose, because the more at ease you are with your own sound, what works for you, the better it will be. So, boy, I was just about to jump to somewhere else. But, first I wanted to suggest that do what feels good for you. I wanted to just first tell a story that goes back a long time ago. And I'm not sure where, it's somewhere in the Mideast, and we'll call the fellow Akbar. It's good, nice Mideastern name. And he had this wonderful multi-stringed instrument. And every day he'd be plucking this instrument, he'd be plucking one string, one note, ding, 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 every day, over and over. And his wife finally said, "Oh, beloved Akbar, my husband, you have this wonderful instrument with so many different strings. And, all your friends have the same instrument. They're playing these incredible melodies and different tunes. Beautiful, different melodies and tunes on them. And you're still playing this one note hour after hour, day after day. Why, my husband, why?" He looked at his wife and said, "My dear, that is because they are still searching for their note while I have found mine." So I say that because I don't know particularly what note what I'm humming each day. I hum what feels comfortable.
Mhm.
And, so that's my note for the day or at a particular time. So you have to, the more you work with sound, and, the more then comfortable you will understand that whatever works for you is real and effective and is your note.
Well, and also one of the things that I want to mention is that we call ours conscious humming, and along with that, breath and breathing is so important before you start humming. And so I would also just suggest that, do some nice deep breathing and then begin to hum. And just imagine that hum, is traveling up to all of that chatter that's going on, and just dissipating that, with your intention. But breath is so important, and that can also help to minimize that chatter as well.
And talking about the chatter, it's kind of interesting, but I have a chatterful mind a whole lot of the time. And I find that when I start humming, and I just focus on feeling the vibrations of the hum and maybe projecting some intentionality onto the hum, everything else disappears. So it is a wonderful silencer of the chatter.
Really good stories. I love all that. Good stuff. I have another question that just came in regarding children. Has humming practice with normally or atypically developing children been studied at all? Is that something that you know about?
That is something that, specifically we have not come across that humming with children. But I will tell you that we have had many, many anecdotal experiences that people have shared with us, that they have hummed with their children, and they may be a teacher, they've hummed with their classroom of children. But the humming is such children adore working with sound, and they like to play around with it. And so what's happening while they're sounding, while they're humming, all of those hormones are that, the oxytocin, which is the trust hormone, is released, and children begin to feel their own internal balance. So I am a big proponent of having children hum.
And in conjunction with that, humming is a wonderful way of really not only calming the mind, but calming the nervous system. And a lot of kids might be a little original, and if you want them to chill out, just have them sit there and hum and it'll relax them, but they will also love it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Humming is fun. In fact, when you hum, basically, you're happy. A friend of mine who's a pretty well-known spiritual teacher said, Jonathan, when you're happy, you hum. And I said, that's true, because it's almost impossible to hum when you're angry. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't go on. People unconscious, and children normally hum. The elderly normally hum. People hum when they're happy. We're simply bringing conscious humming into the, shall we say, awareness of people. So humming, great. And one last phenomena, when you are humming with someone else, you get not only the release of oxytocin, which is the trust hormone, so you get that going on between yourself and someone else, but you also get this, for want of a better term, neurological entrainment. So your nervous system, your heart rate, your respiration, your brain waves begin to vibrate and entrain with the other person. If it's a child, how cool is it to begin to resonate?
And the other thing too about children humming is, one of the things that we've definitely found is that people are not judgmental about their humming. And we've never heard anybody say, oh gosh, I'm just not a very good hummer. And we have not come across that. And so that gives children an opportunity to play around with their voice and to hum and to make sound without judging that, and with accepting who they are.
Got to jump in with this one. We have really no caveats in terms of humming, except for it being a comfortable sound. Okay, louder is not better, longer is not better, more is not necessarily better. But the one thing, in order to properly hum, is you got to have your lips together. If your mouth is open, then it's not a hum. Now, normally I do this with an audience, and anybody can try this with me now. Try this with us.
And it's a great to do with children.
Right. But basically, start to hum and then pinch your nostril. You got to make sure your lips are closed. And I'll do this, and I'm not faking it. You ready? You can't hum if your nose is pinched. And that's a great thing to do with people, particularly if they're like, oh, humming, I've been humming all my life. You do that little exercise and people go, whoa, you can't hum if you're pinching your nose. And you go, yeah, okay. If you didn't know that about the hum, do you think perhaps there's some other things about the hum that you might know? And I got to jump into this one, talking about other things about the hum that you didn't know. Okay. I know that there must be some yoga devotees out there. Recently, I was reading the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali's, and this is Swami Satchidananda's translation. Andi and I, every year, will go to
to Yogaville,
Yogaville
to Swami
is the name of the place.
Satchidananda's ashram.
And we would teach there. So we like Swami Satchidananda. I particularly like him because I was at Woodstock, and he was the fellow who started the entire Woodstock festival by having 500,000 people chanting back and forth. And I think that may be one of the reasons why Woodstock unto itself was such a really marvelous event without major catastrophic things going on. But Sutra 1.27 from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And this is not verbatim, but it says basically, the original sound of creation was the humming of prana, pranava, the humming of energy. They had to give this a name, so they called it Om.
So the hum is the original sound, and then came the Om.
Right, and the hum is actually a very advanced form of yoga. It's called Brahmari
Pranayama.
And it simply is, which means humming be breath, and it is done. And it's actually it's very advanced Shabd yoga, which is audible sound current yoga. And at best, it is conscious humming with perhaps the addendum that people might block their ears and possibly do what is called a mudra, going like this, but it's not necessary. So really, doing humming can lead you into an incredible journey into the realm of sound and consciousness.
And what better place to start than with children? Back to the original question there. Anyway, hope that helped.
It's true. I think as babies, we always start as humming. We kind of just ooh and ah and coo. That's like what we do. It seems like a natural source of the body's way of like putting out to the, letting out sounds.
Michael, can I interject another story for you?
Sure, please. Please. Okay. I love your stories.
About 25 plus years ago, 30 perhaps, I was in Los Angeles teaching a workshop. And there was another man by the name of Dr. John Lilly, who some of you may know about. He did tremendous work with dolphins and with consciousness and with altered states. And in fact, 2 movies were based upon his work. Day of the Dolphin, some of you may remember that with George C. Scott, and another one called Altered States. So John and I, this person was giving a party for the 2 of us, and the living room and all the place was filled with people. And we were out in a veranda by ourselves. And he's sitting there, and he's pretty elderly. He's in his 80s at the time. And he's simply sitting there going, So after a couple of minutes, I realized, okay, here is a fellow who is a master of altered states. He has basically journeyed into places that I dare not even imagine existed, has written so much stuff. So I said, John, excuse me, but are you doing that consciously? And you don't ask a man who's written like a dozen different books on consciousness that question. Because he looked at me and he goes, young man, which I was at the time. So I no longer know what consciousness is. And he proceeds to give me a half-hour lecture on the mind being, full of many different rooms, et cetera, et cetera. So I never personally got a direct answer about the humming experience that he was having. But it really affected me to such a degree that I said, there's something going on. This guy is able to basically do some sort of sonic neurologic effect that he's preferring over the majority of, shall we say, pharmaceuticals and other types of drugs that he was doing. So I share that with you as an interesting story.
Great story. We just got a question from Warner S. He said, what do you think of saying an intentional word to transition into the hum? Maybe picking a intentional word to use daily or something, huh?
Oh, I think it would be wonderful. Absolutely. Anything that can help along those lines. But certainly, just focusing on a word of the day that you're resonating with, that is positive and healing and loving, and then just begin humming with that word as, sort of the container of your hum.
Andi is way big into affirmations. So I think that you could take an affirmation, say the affirmation a few times, and then start humming and project the affirmation onto the hum, encode with the hum. What a cool experience. Thank you.
Beautiful experience. This humming thing is just too good. It's too easy for everybody. We just got a really great question, and I've often wondered this too. Do you think aggressive music like punk rock music or heavy metal can still contain healing frequencies?
And we will say absolutely Yes, it can, because we are all unique vibratory beings. And the way that music and sound affects each of us in our own unique way. And someone may get a tremendous amount of healing from punk rock, someone else may not. But it is all about what you are, what's right for you. And that's why, working with sound, there's no judgment about it, because as long as it's helpful, as long as it's beneficial. So anyway, that, Jonathan, you may want to say,
I've got a story. Okay. So when I first moved to Colorado, I lived up in the mountains outside of Boulder. And the trip up the canyon was treacherous to begin with. And during a snowstorm, it was terrifying. And I remember teaching one time, and as I began going up the canyon, this windy canyon, and if you were to go over, you'd be dropping like hundreds, if not thousands of feet. Kind of scary. And it's snowing really hard, and I put on some really deep relaxation music. And all of a sudden I said, no, this is not working for me, because I'm beginning to get a little chilled out, and the snow is coming at me. It kind of looked a little bit like going through a star field or something like that. And the music was sort of trance-inducing. I said, this is not working. So I literally put on the Rolling Stones. I cranked it up really loud, because loud music will also, it have the negative aspect of loud music, among other things, is that it will cause the fight or flight response and the release of adrenaline. But during that time, when I'm driving in this snowstorm and trying to stay on the road, I wanted my adrenaline going. I wanted to be as sharp as clear. I turned it up. I basically took the window down, and I was able to make it up. But I thought, this is so important. And indeed, I actually learned that sometime before, when I went on my first exercise machine, a treadmill, and I put on my own music. I thought, oh, this would be cool. And unfortunately, there's an entrainment phenomena that goes on within you. Your heart rate, your respiration, your brain waves, your muscular system begins to relax when you're listening to this type of music, which is what it's designed for. But my body did not want to be doing that and staying at a high speed on the treadmill, and I fell off. So this is why, if you're on in a gym, for example, people are doing, listening to some high tempo, fast music, because very simply, your nervous system entrains to the rhythms and of different music, which is very, very important. So getting back to punk rock music depends on the person and their need at the time.
So everyone, just remember that each of us are unique vibratory beings, and to go with what your intuition, your inner guidance is telling you.
And bottom line is, we all have different metabolisms. And when you're young, your metabolism is so
Right.
different than now. So metabolically, what works for you when you're 15 or 20 is different when you're older.
Like us.
You guys are fantastic, and I'm really enjoying this. We're getting so many good questions. I think we have enough time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. This is a really good question here that came in from Brooke. She said, can sound waves from outside sources, like a speaker or a singing bowl, produce the same healing benefits as humming?
Well, that's a great question. That's a workshop question, but I'll try to answer it by this. First of all, as I think I may have mentioned, there are 2 basic ways that sound affects us. One is the sound goes into our ear, into our brain, affects our nervous system, our heart rate, our respiration, our brain waves. This is called psychoacoustics. The other way is the sound going into our body. This is called vibroacoustics. This is where the sound goes into us on a cellular level. That quote from the New York Times, 1988, sound shaped into dazzling tool can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure. This is the power of vibroacoustics. And one of the things that I'm going to just say that is interesting is that right now there's some interest in music medicine, and the interest in music medicine mostly has to do with studying music and sound and the effects upon the brain, which is wonderful. They hook up people to fMRIs and whatnot, and they check out what's happening with the brain. And that's wonderful. But another truly powerful way that sound affects us is going into our body, affecting us on a cellular level, going down to our DNA. And so with this in mind, if you're listening to these bowls, it's going to certainly affect you on a psychoacoustic level, and to some degree the sound is going to be going into you, particularly if you've got a Tibetan bowl and you put it on your body, or a tuning fork like this and you put it on your body. That's really cool. But the hum is the most powerful vibroacoustic sound that we personally can make, because once again, all the sound is being contained within our mouth, that can then, and then sinus cavity, that can then be projected into us. So if you are perceiving of different ways that sound affects us, and also the hum affects us on a psychoacoustic wave, of course, because we can still hear ourselves unless we're blocking our ears, which is then Brahmari pranayama. So once again, this could be a whole different question. The question of, is sound coming through speakers as therapeutic as sound that is being created in front of you live? Is the sound of a Tibetan bowl through a speaker the same as the Tibetan bowl that is being done in front of you? These are all questions that would take too long to really carefully examine, but they're all thought-provoking.
Well, and also, when we're working with sound, whether we're working vibroacoustically like humming, and that is just filling up at our bodies at a cellular level, or if we're listening and the sound is affecting our nervous system, traveling in through our auditory pathways, it's just, a combination of all of these things. One is not to the exclusion of the other. And so, you may be listening to a Tibetan bowl. That's certainly fine. You may have a Tibetan bowl, on your chest and playing it. And then that, of course, also
you might be
fine.
Humming while you're playing the Tibetan bowl. Yeah. What a concept.
Yeah. So
fantastic. We have a really good question that just came in about animals. Cats purr, is that healing or similar? And do animals give or receive healing humming healing benefits?
That's one I can tell you. Apparently, this is from a few years ago, I have a folder of all this absurd minutia about sound healing. And one of them has to do with the purring of cats, which is between 30 and 60 cycles a second, which falls within the vibroacoustic range and has been found to be therapeutic in terms of the healing of bones.
And I think that personally, I think that cats are very healing, and they're very intuitive, and they're tuned in to what we might need as their owner. So I think that definitely the purring of cats can be very therapeutic.
And I bet you if I went further, you'd find that all sorts of things in your nervous system start to chill out when cats are on you. I'm not going to get into the whole subject of cats or dogs and animals and how we interface, but how wonderful is it? Okay, next question.
Great stuff. This is a good one. Do singers benefit from the same effects even though they're not actually humming?
Depends on the singer. Depends what they're singing. Depends why they're singing. Wow. Because that's such a, yes, they can. And certainly they may. It depends. I think there is This is once again such a huge question. If somebody is singing to release emotional stuff and singing, and they're aware of the vibration, sound, totally. If they're doing it purely as an entertainment vehicle, well, then it can be healing for the person listening, and it can be healing for them. But there are, so many different ways that we heal. Andi works as a psychologist, psychotherapeutically, emotionally, mentally, et cetera. That's different, perhaps. And yes, and it depends on who's doing what.
And once again, we go back to intention, because that just certainly makes a huge difference. And, singing is wonderful and very therapeutic. And if you are, humming, that's going deeply into your body, more so vibroacoustically than singing where we're, singing outward with our words. And so, but yeah, they're both very healing.
It depends on who's doing it and what for.
Well, that's good stuff. We got a technical question that came in, sort of, and it says, does the amplitude affect the strength of the healing?
Brilliant question. And I know that we're going to have to get off really soon, because I just heard a clap of thunder. Whoosh. And, talk about amplitude. If it gets too close, who knows what will happen. But here's this. Here we believe, particularly in the West, that bigger is better, louder is better, more is better. That's not necessarily correct. Sometimes it's, the term subtle energy. Sound is a subtle energy. And this subtle energy can be very gentle and relaxed. And actually, there was a very well-known scientist by the name of Robert Becker, who wrote the book, The Body Electric, and he was with Cornell University. And I'm not going to get into his merits, except to say that he found that with electricity, particularly electromagnetic fields, that oftentimes it was the weaker and more subtle the field had the greatest effect upon the cell. The larger and more powerful the field would just basically pass through. It was almost too much. So just bigger is not better. Do what works for you. But, we have this thought that, hey, if it's really loud, then it's going to be healing. No, if it's really coated with intention and love, it'll be healing.
That is a great answer. And I think we're now going to wrap it up. It's almost 5:00. If you guys have anything else you'd like to add, if you would like to show them your book one more time, you want to hold up your Humming Effect book. I've been posting links for it, but if you guys out there would like to buy a copy, it's a really great book. I've enjoyed reading it. And also you can get the audio book too version. It's really nice.
And, Michael, if we have just a second, I'd love to read the quote that is on the back of our book that we got from Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief. And he said, I highly recommend the Humming Effect for all those impacted by the stress of the modern world. It is a powerful, and this is what I really love, non-pharmaceutical prescription for self-healing that has only positive side effects, such as harmony, health, and happiness. So I love to share that with our listeners. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
And our website is healingsounds.com. Healingsounds.com. Go to it. There's lots of great stuff. Michael, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you and everyone else we trust. It's been a blast. We love it. The rain is now coming down so heavily, it's probably going to drown out our voices.
Here in Boulder. But this has been just lovely. And thank you so much, Michael. And thank you to all of our listeners for sharing your time with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
We send blessings of light
and love through sound.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for this. This is a really beautiful experience. I'm so glad everyone got a chance to see you both and hear from you, and really great answers and stories. This was our first time doing this, so thank you again for your patience, and I'm just so grateful. And let's look forward to all the good sound and love and light that's going to be coming our way.
you.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a great night.
You